Joining us, who is someone who is no stranger to the Observer. We're talking to St. Augustine MP and UNC Shadow Minister of Local Government, Khadija Ameen. A pleasant good evening to you, Khadija.
Good evening, Mikee K, and of course to all your listeners.
Thank you so much. Well, the aftermath, so much is being said. And I know you've been weighing in on this for quite some time, especially not just with the campaign, but of course the night of the results and what have you. What say you? Because according to newspaper reports, it says that the UNC is ascending under Kamla Persad-Bissessa's leadership. And this is evidenced by the popular vote the party received and the gains it has made in the PNM strongholds in the local government election. Please expand on that.
Now, Mikee K, you know I'm a person on the ground, and I work with several candidates, especially along the east-west corridor. We got the feel. We got the people who were fed up of the PNM, people who wanted to make a change. We also got people who were asking, if I vote in this local government election, it does not change who is in government, and I want to get rid of the PNM. I am happy to see so many people taking the decision to cast their vote, and particularly on the east-west corridor in Arima, for instance, there are seats at the PNM considered strongholds that we only had a margin of about 9 votes. There's one where there was a tie, and a recount is currently ongoing there, where Jazzy is the UNC's candidate. We have Diaz in Arima there, where there was another very small margin, and several other candidates who contested in so-called PNM strongholds that give the PNM a run for their money. In the Tunapuna region as well, Blanchisseur's Santa Rosa district, which is Pinto, Santa Rosa, Maturita, and Blanchisseur's and so on. In those areas, that is a seat we won in 2010, and we did not win after that. The candidate there lost by less than 100 votes. In Five Rivers, the candidate there lost by less than 50 votes. In the Ozanville Tunapuna area, which is considered a PNM stronghold, we did not even win that seat in 2010. Our candidate there, Miguel Lachman, lost by only 120 votes or so. So it speaks volumes where the PNM would have won by 1,200 before. They only won by 120. 10 times, the less. Yeah. So in several areas, and the same thing would have happened in San Fernando, where you have Marabella West, where the PNM would have won consecutively. Macmillan was able to bring home that seat. In the seat where Vista Bella, where the UNC councillor, Marcus, would have jumped ship, UNC was able to retain that seat with Sasha Ali. So I think it speaks volumes in terms of the mood of the country. What also I found interesting in Sandy Grande region, Sandy Grande moved from being a PNM-held corporation to going 4 for the PNM, 4 for the UNC. And the last election, it was 5 for the UNC and 3 for the PNM. And now this time the PNM won 1 seat. There was 1 seat where a difference of about 12 votes that a recount is happening. But we also won Valencia West. So that is an additional seat. So the UNC has clearly gained ground in Toko Sandy Grande, which is considered a marginal constituency. You see ground was gained in the Tunapuna constituency, which again is a marginal, as well as the San Fernando West constituency, which once again is a marginal constituency. So it speaks volumes in terms of what the future could hold for a general election. And I think it should serve to convince people of the importance of their vote, even when they feel it doesn't make sense because it is a PNM stronghold and PNM always wins that area. The power of people coming out and vote, they should be convinced now how important it is to vote.
But let me ask you, what do you say to folks who looking at it? You're able to break it down first to the lowest common denominator, understanding what it means as far as these results going into a general election. But what do you say to people who look and say, you know what, this is 7-7. I can't believe we came back to this. I can't believe here it is that we're stuck. What is it? What do you say to people like that?
Well, the UNC contested less seats than the PNM because we had an accommodation. Gary Griffith contested 31 seats, and still the UNC won more seats than the PNM did. It was also interesting when they said the UNC won the popular vote, where 71,000 people voted for the UNC and about 48,000 voted for the PNM. So that also is interesting, and it speaks to the system of local government where the vote counting is concerned. The political leader of the UNC, the Honorable Kamla has spoken in the past about the fairness or the lack thereof when you speak about the size of the electorate for certain areas. In Tunapuna Piako region, the electorate is between 10 and 11,000. In areas like Point Fortin and San Fernando and so on, the electorate is much, much smaller. So sometimes the PNM has to get 600 votes and they win, whereas in the seats that the UNC win, in Couva, Tabakeet and Princestown and so on, a councillor would get about 4,000 or 5,000 votes. So in order to win, you have to get this tremendous, you get about 10 times the amount of votes. But that is not reflected in the number of seats. So we also, when we look at that, you have to consider too the number of persons in that district to be serviced by whatever financial allocation you give to that councillor. The vastness of the area that one councillor has to represent versus how small an area another councillor has to represent. So
Understood.
The system is not fair. It clearly is not fair. And I think now that people are analyzing more and more the number of votes, the number of seats, the size of the seats. When you look at the map of Trinidad, you see 3/4 of the map is yellow, yet they say 7-7. So we are seeing the unfairness more and more. But the question is, do we trust the EBC to fairly put boundaries forward to the Parliament?
And I guess that's something that you have to look at seriously moving forward. Also, when you look at it, I heard on a station, which is, of course, labeled a PNM station, one of the presenters saying is that they're quite aware that the PNM, their party, was not popular, they're not liked at this time. But what gave them some sort of a hope was the candidates. People gravitated to the candidates rather than that of the party. Taking that in consideration, like Ali Bokas and many things that you mentioned earlier, what was the new dynamics, if any, that the UNC had that gave them that sense of confidence going into the election?
I think one of the major things that happened on the national platform is that the issues being discussed on the platform were relevant to people. It resonated with everyone. The issues of crime, the issues of job creation, the issues of safe communities, whereas the PNM was talking about reform and introducing property tax. The political leader may have gotten some criticism. In fact, I heard Dr. Rowley himself chastising the leader of opposition for speaking about crime, saying that it is a national issue. The Minister of National Security and the government has clearly failed to keep us safe, to reduce crime. And what you had coming out on the platform is the UNC saying, when you have a UNC-led corporation, these are the ways that the UNC corporation could keep you safe. By employing more municipal police, we create employment. By dispatching these police to do comfort patrols in communities, by providing additional security in the areas of schools and playgrounds to keep our children safe. These are national issues, but because of the failure of the government, you can have local government playing a role. When it comes to local economic development, the regional corporations have a role to play to create opportunities for small and micro enterprises. When we think about food booths and vending booths and keeping those areas clean and sanitized in a way that you would encourage people to come out in where you have sporting activities, cultural activities, you have vending, you have police presence,
right,
so that people feel safe in their communities. All of these things, regional corporations have a role to play. So those are some of the things that, when it comes to crime, the economy, and creating jobs, that regional corporations can play a role. And clearly, PNM has no interest in that. They want to talk about property tax, and I think what they have done is they have withheld funding from regional corporations, crippling them to the extent where they cannot even put fuel in the tractor to cut the grass on the playground, to convince us that we need property tax, when the truth is that they have not been releasing the funds to the regional corporations, and their own corporations also suffer. And then you can't patch potholes, and you keep telling people you need property tax, and there are some people who unfortunately believed it. But the truth is that once regional corporations get their allocation and there is a political will to make local government work, it could happen. And I think that is what the PNM continues to do, to sabotage the corporations and undermine them, to try to convince the population that we need property tax.
Oh, quite interesting here also in that press report that Mr. Warner said he has confidence in Prasad Bisessa's leadership, as he rubbished the call by the same bitter people who have been hitting her leadership for 8 years. He asked the question, if not Mrs. Prasad Bisessa, who? At the end of the day, she is the unifying factor behind the UNC. She has been a catalyst for progress and change. And why didn't they move Dr. Rowley after that tremendous Tobago defeat? And why didn't they remove Rowley in the 7-7 when he lost over 50,000 votes? Do you believe that this has shown that the way how Mr. Warner has described Mrs. Prasad Bisessa, some sense of validation for all of those who were saying that perhaps it was time for her to pack up and go?
Let me tell you, those people who are saying that, some of them don't even live in Trinidad. Some of them are bitter. They are still toting because they did not get a seat to fight under the UNC. Some of them are former government ministers. Some of them were MPs and they did not get back their seat, and they're still toting. The bitterness continues, but it is coming from a personal space. It is not in the interest of the country. When Dr. Rowley lost Tobago, did you tell Dr. Rowley to resign as the leader of the PNM? Now, in this election, Dr. Rowley has lost several seats to the UNC. They have lost several votes. When you count, hundreds of votes less than in the previous election. Are you going to ask Dr. Rowley to step down? You know, many of these people have selfish motives, and we must be wary of them. We must think in the interest of Trinidad and Tobago and stop thinking in terms of your personal grudge. Because the truth is that if some of these people get a position in the UNC today, tomorrow they will be singing a completely different tune. Some of them, from what I understand, they have cocoa in the sun. And the PNM is kind of holding them to ransom. Some of them, there are things that the PNM is holding over their head. And so because of that, they are forced in a way to constantly attack the UNC. And that's unfortunate. You know, the nature of some of these things may come out in the future, but I think the country has to think about what is right for them. Every grandmother should consider whether they want their children to get laptops when they go in school. Every mother should consider whether they want their baby to be able to get milk if they can't afford it. Every person who could possibly get sick, which is every one of us, should be comfortable that when we go in the hospitals, we could get medication, we could get surgeries, and we wouldn't be on our waiting list that is 2 and 3 years old. You know, those are the things you have to consider. So I tell people, when you vote, if you are confused about UNC and PNM, vote for yourself. Vote for what will be better for you. Vote because you know that when Kamla Prasad Bisessa is Prime Minister, there are more jobs and more people will eat our food. Vote for what will benefit your community and your family. So, I mean, I really don't spend too much time on some of these detractors. I know some of them have cocoa in the sun and they're being kind of forced to attack the PUNC constantly. But we have to stay focused, and I think that the voters spoke volumes, and we have to continue in our efforts in representing people in a real way.
Yeah. Mr. Warner, I know you have a very important meeting to go to, so I don't want to hold you back too much. Mr. Warner said that the UNC cannot rest. We have to continue working as if the election has been called yesterday. We have to regroup ourselves and strategize ourselves accordingly, because any number can play between now and 2025. What say you on that?
I agree with Mr. Warner, and in fact that has been the sentiment of Mrs. Prasad Bisessa. Many of the seats we won and we gained ground in fall in marginal seats that will be deciding seats when we have a general election. A general election could be called before it is due in 2025. Dr. Rowley is not one to really take on the views of the people clearly. I think seeing that the writing is on the wall, he will hold on to power for as long as he could. I mean, we had protests and riots in Port of Spain, and he did not see it fit to resign. We have thousands of people who previously voted for PNM who did not vote for him. The UNC won by an overwhelming popular vote. Will he resign, or will he continue to hold on to power for the sake of it? You know, we have, but at the end of the day, our commitment is to represent the people in a real way. So whatever the issues in the country are, our recommendations will be to address those ills, including crime, unemployment, and the economy.
Great. So there's no sleep. Basically, you're moving into the second phase, preparing for 2025.
Oh, certainly. Certainly. We will not be folding up our jerseys. We'll be washing them and hanging them up because we'll be hitting the road again. But, you know, our UNC's style of representation, Kamla Persad-Bissessar always lead the charge with her councillors being first on the ground when there's flooding, first to bring relief when there's COVID. Where we don't have councillors, we have shadow councillors. And certainly the type of representation expected from them are not only limited to the regional corporation, but they are representatives of everything on the ground in the communities. So I think with that continued leadership and the excellent representation it will bring from the UNC councillors, I think people will view them favorably.
All right. Thank you so much for taking time out this evening, and we will be checking in with you periodically. Thank you so much.
Certainly.
That's it.